I'm getting incoming reports about a recent development on an ongoing issue in Russia. Let's hear from Sarah Carvin to take an inside look on how the Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny has been silenced.
Thank you, Maddie. I'm here at the IK6 penal colony, the last known whereabouts of Alexei Navalny. Navalny was serving an 11-and-a-half-year sentence in a maximum security penal colony on fraud when he was sentenced to 19 additional years in prison in August after he was found guilty by Russian officials of creating an extremist community, financing extremist activities, and other crimes. Supporters of Navalny claim that his arrest is motivated to stifle his criticism of current Russian President Vladimir Putin. Now, Navalny has gone missing while serving out his sentence, which comes days after Putin announced that he will run for re-election in March 2024, a move that will ensure he is in power until 2030. From the prison cell, Navalny has organized anti-government street protests through his blog and has used social media to expose corruption in the Kremlin and Russian business.
Thank you for joining us today as we unfold the economic issues facing Russia today. Because of the Russo-Ukrainian war, Russia has had an increase in spending, throwing their budget out of balance. To make up for the lack of money, they have decided to take the course of making their citizens suffer from inflated prices. Here's Kenzie Bunn and Sukmani Kaur with the latest.
Reporting today is Kenzie and Sukmani on inflation and the fight against it in the Russian economy. This has seriously escalated since July 2023. Prices rose by 6% in the 12 months to September, and the central bank expects inflation to reach 7 to 7.5% in the coming months. Russia is experiencing its second spike in inflation in the war with Ukraine. The first spike was more significant, but inflation is still hitting Russians in their pockets. Sukmani is here to tell us more about the second spike in inflation.
Rising inflation has forced the central bank to raise the key interest rate from 13% to 15%. From July 2023, the rate has been raised by 550 basis points and may be raised by a further 150 basis points. The main reason for rising inflation is loose fiscal policy. The budget deficit is a major contributor to money growth, and the central bank needs to slow down lending to keep inflation from getting out of control. Thank you. Along with the international issue Russia is facing, domestic issues are on the rise as well. Now let's take a look at the civil and human rights issues that are currently taking place in Russia. We have Serena Nicholson from Whoville News.
This is Serena Nicholson of Whoville News, reporting live on the human rights issues occurring in Russia because of their war on Ukraine. The UN Special Reporter for Russia, Mariana Katsarova, sounded the alarm on what she says is a pattern of suppression of civil and political rights there. Addressing the Human Rights Council in Geneva, Ms. Katsarova voiced grave concerns over mass arbitrary arrests and the persistent use of torture and ill treatment. Over 20,000 people were detained between February 2022 and June 2023 for participating in largely peaceful anti-war protests. Additionally, Ms. Katsarova received reports of torture and ill treatment in detention, including sexual violence and rape by law enforcement officials targeting anti-war protesters. Russian authorities have also used propaganda and rhetoric to incite hatred and violence against Ukrainians. The report claims that 600 criminal lawsuits were initiated against so-called anti-war activity. Ms. Katsarova added that children in schools face threats and serious consequences for even drawing an anti-war picture. Joined by many member states, the UN expert urged Russia to undertake comprehensive human rights reforms to address the damage of the past 2 decades. The Russian government has not accepted the mandate of the report and denied the independent expert access to the country. Russia was represented at the Human Rights Council in Geneva during the report's presentation, but did not choose to respond. So there you have it. This has been Serena Nicholson reporting live from Whoville News.
Let's turn to Anna, who's going to give us a deeper look at the war with Russia and Ukraine.
Hi, welcome to McDonald's Broadcasting. Today, Mickey D News will be discussing one of the most popular mainstream political issues in Russia right now, the Russian-Ukrainian war. The conflict as we know it started February 24th, 2022. Russia's main motivation in the war was the ending of democracy and Westernism within Ukraine, as well as the joining of NATO. Though this conflict seems current, Russia has been infatuated with Ukrainian independence and control since 1991, its initial departure from the Soviet Union. Vladimir Putin and many other Russian presidents have dismissed the Ukrainian efforts as a need to unite the Eastern European Slavic countries, though internationally this explanation isn't seen as a real justification for the crimes being committed in Ukraine. Though globally Russian efforts in Ukraine are generally discredited, a whopping 3/4, 75% of the Russian population is in support of the Ukrainian invasion, though many polls released by Russia and the Russian government are often discredited. Since the war, Ukraine has suffered mass displacement and death. Russia continues to sever its diplomatic ties with the West. Now Russia is suffering from a stagnant economy, a damaged military, and an illegitimate, discredited government.
Along with the war tax, Russia's GDP has dropped, trade has declined, and revenue from fossil fuels has diminished, further shrinking their economy. This is because of the 10 sanctions adopted by the European Council that were aimed to weaken Russia's ability to financially support their war with Ukraine. Let us turn to Maddie Duffalo and Ellie Hansen to get more information about how the sanctions imposed by the EC have impacted Russia's financial system.
Welcome back to our daily talk show. Today we have Ellie Hansen, an economics expert on Russia.
Thank you for having me.
So Ellie, tell us, what's going on with sanctions in Russia today?
Okay, so the European Council has adopted many sanctions with a goal to weaken Russia's capability to fund for the war in Ukraine. These sanctions were not meant to affect Russian society, so food, agriculture, pharmaceuticals, and health, these were not included in these sanctions.
How have the sanctions impacted Russia's society?
These sanctions have had an obvious impact on Russian economy. For example, in 2022, Russia's GDP dropped by a whopping 2.1%, and according to the OECD's opinion, they expect it to decline even more by 2.5%, a worst-case scenario for Russia.
To add on to Ellie, not only is their GDP taking a hit from these sanctions, it's also impacting trade. Restricting imports from Russia and exports to Russia have made a negative impact on its economy, and Russia's trade has strikingly decreased. In addition, in February of 2023, Russian oil revenue has decreased by a monstrous 40%. Now, if you weren't aware, Russia is the world's third largest production country, so you know this has taken a hard smack to the Russian economy. Despite all these drawbacks on the Russian economy, Russia is not backing down. In fact, they are increasing their spending on military, and they're quite ambitious about it. According to foreignpolicy.com, Russia has been able to find loopholes to these sanctions, and Western sanctions will now become stricter.
Thank you. Now that we have discussed the impact of sanctions on Russian economy, let us turn our attention to the growing labor shortage in Russia. Because a massive amount of money is being poured into it, the lack of workers is only making things worse for the national sector of Russia's economy. This has had a significant impact on the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine as well. Here's Abby Driver with the latest about this catastrophic unemployment issue.
Hello, I'm Abby, your source for all economic news. As we all know, the economy is influenced by almost all aspects of society, and with Russia's invasion of Ukraine, Russia has faced a major labor shortage, severely affecting their economy. The state is diverting its financial resources to the defense sector, and the people are following, said Ruben Anikolopov, a research professor with UPF University in Barcelona. Russia's unemployment rate has fallen to 3%, its lowest level in 30 years. Leaving businesses struggling to find workers. All of Russia's attention has been put into the ongoing war, so their national sector is crumbling in all aspects.
We welcome you as we introduce and discuss social issues being faced in Russia. LGBTQ is a sensitive topic in the Russian society, and now it has clashed with immigration. Here is Lexi Carvin with the latest information.
In the past 15 months, around 155,000 Russians received temporary residence permits in European Union countries and in several countries of the Balkans, Caucasus, and Central Asia. Around 17,000 have applied for political asylum in EU countries, but only around 2,000 have received it, according to the European Agency for Asylum. The Russian Interior Ministry says 40% more have applied for foreign passports in 2022 than in the year before. Why are so many Russians immigrating from the motherland? Let's hear from Thomas from St. Petersburg. He has asked us not to provide his last name for security reasons. Hi Thomas, so you're from Moscow but left your home country recently. What was your reason for the move?
I am a pacifist and terrified of being sent to kill other people. I've been fighting against Russia's policy towards Ukraine since 2014. Invasion and killing of civilians is unacceptable. After a full-scale invasion of Ukraine back in February 2022, I posted anti-war messages on social media platforms. I also joined street protests against the war as well. As a gay member of the LGBTQ community, I was concerned for my safety.
Oh my goodness, I can't imagine. After Russia adopted laws about a ban on gay propaganda and on fake news about the Russian army, he knew that the threat to his life and freedom had increased. The Russian president's official spokesman, Dmitry Peskov, has denied Russians were leaving to avoid being drafted. However, in April, Russian authorities introduced an online call-up where new conscripts could be added. So where did you go after you knew for sure that you could no longer stay in Russia?
I am still in Russia right now. I applied for the political asylum in Sweden and tried to explain to the authorities there why not returning to Russia, it would be dangerous.
You're moving to Sweden soon?
That is the hope. My application was turned down, but I have appealed against the decision since I have only limited time with the state lawyer. I'm working on gathering evidence for my case on my own.
Thank you for coming on the show. I hope the best for your application, and we will keep you in our thoughts.
Next up is our cooking segment with Esther and Kenzie, where they're going to make classic Russian bellinis.
And now we will be introducing our special guest for our cooking show.
Hi! Hi, I'm Kenzie. Nice to meet you. I am the 2023 World Champion of the Great Russian Bake Off, and today I'm going to be showing Esther and her audience exactly how we perfect the perfect Russian bellini. Okay, we're going to start off by making our bellinis. So first, you're going to get yourself a big mixing bowl to put everything together in, and we'll start out with our ingredients. You're going to take your egg and vanilla extract mixer and add that to the bowl. Next is our milk. Adding that
What are
to the bowl
alternatives
as
you
well.
can use if you don't have milk?
Alternatives can be heavy whipping cream and a mixture of that and water, or you could always just do water if you didn't have any.
Sounds
All right,
good.
next is our sugar and baking powder mix. We're gonna pour that in. Then we have olive oil. Add that to our bowls. Then our last is going to be butter. Then you're gonna give this a good mix, and then we're going to add in our flour. So next you're gonna add in your all-purpose flour. Just a little bit at a time to make sure that we're mixing them nice and good.
How do you know that when it's perfectly mixed and ready?
You're gonna look for a little bit of a liquidy consistency. You don't want them to be too thick so you're easily able to pour them into the pan.
Okay.
It's definitely a thinner mixture. Not quite like cake batter, but not quite like brownie batter.
Okay.
And then once you mix these in, we're gonna head on over to the stove. We transferred our batter from the bowl into this mixing cup with a spout for easy pour. As we come over to our stove here, we're gonna turn it on medium heat and add a little bit of olive oil or butter, your choice, into the pan. You're gonna add about 4 tablespoons of batter into the pan, just to barely cover the surface. Then you're gonna wait about 1 minute, flip, and 1 more minute, and we'll see you then. Once you're done, you're gonna go ahead and fold it in half, and then fold it 1 more time. And then here's your bellini.
Now my turn. Wow, look at this masterpiece. All right, time to flip. Oh my goodness!
Okay, now that we have our finished bellinis here, Esther, thank you for having me on your show
Thank you so
today.
much. I have a question. So
Yes,
where can I
anything.
get this?
So this is a food that can be used at any occasion, but most popularly breakfast, late night snack, considering they're so easy to make.
Yeah, that's so cool. What other toppings can I use?
So other toppings you could use drizzled chocolate, you can use chocolate chips, you can use peanut butter, any type of fruit, anything like that.
Wow, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Thanks for being on the show today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Next, we have Esther, who's going to help us decipher Russia's economic issues.
The press office of Russia's emergencies ministry staff are providing their evacuated citizens shelter from the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. They are being sent to Egypt's capital, Cairo, where emergency operations centers have been set up by their ministry. As the tensions flare up between Hamas and Israel, it has become increasingly difficult for foreign citizens in the Gaza Strip to leave via the Rafah crossing on the border with Egypt. Despite the border crossing found to be blocked, Special Russian Presidential Representative for the Middle East and Africa, Deputy Foreign Minister Mikhail Bogdanov, stated that the Russian nationals would be successfully evacuated through the Rafah crossing in no more than 3 days. Now to Miroslava Lebedev for more on this topic.
Are we live yet? Yes! Hi, I'm Miroslava Lebedev, reporting live from Gaza. The press office of Russia's emergency ministry reported on Sunday, November 12th, the first Russian nationals have officially been safely evacuated from the Gaza Strip. We will be supplying them with their immediate needs, such as food, water, and additionally provide medical and psychological assistance to those who require it. Do svidaniya.
The Russian abduction of Ukrainian children. Officially, Ukraine has documented more than 19,000 missing children, but that number could be closer to 300,000. The International Criminal Court has charged Putin and his Commissioner for Children's Rights, Maria Lvova-Belova, for war crimes of unlawful deportation and transfer of children. We will be following the journey of a Ukrainian grandmother to find her grandson who was abducted by Russia. Her story is one that many families in Ukraine can relate to.
He means everything to me. He's my air, my sky, my water. I live for him. He's my life. I love him very much.
So, Nikita's 9 years old, and he was attending a boarding school in Russia for children with special needs when the authorities ordered all 86 kids to move deeper into Russian territory, correct?
Yes, the Russian Federation stole him. They abducted him. I came home after work and opened Instagram, and there was a picture of my child, Nikita, with the caption, "Russia is taking children."
Did the authorities ask permission to move Nikita? Did they notify anyone?
No, they didn't tell anyone anything. They simply removed him and hid him.
What were those 3 months like?
Really bad. I wouldn't sleep at night. I didn't want to go to work. I didn't even want to live because I had no one to live for.
So sorry. She went on Facebook and found a 401c3 organization, Save Ukraine, that works to find abducted children. They have rescued over 200 kids, from toddlers to teenagers, since the outbreak of the war. The organization relies on an underground network of safe houses to complete their rescue mission, including the homes of Russians who oppose the invasion of Ukraine. It is the women and mothers that go into Russian territory to take their children back. Before leaving, they are given a safety briefing on how to develop cover stories when they are inevitably questioned by the Russian authorities. So, when she decided she couldn't risk any more time away from her grandson, Polina packed her bags, gathered gifts, and departed by train for Russia. Before leaving, though, she and Save Ukraine devised a plan to help ensure her passage through a border checkpoint near the school. She pretended to be an aid worker and was given the correct paperwork to prove it. It wasn't until 9 days in that she was able to make contact with us and the Save Ukraine team again. Once she arrived at the school, she told the director she was a volunteer from Poland who brought supplies. When she identified herself as Nikita's grandmother and provided a Ukrainian document to take him home, the director refused. Last year, Putin made it easier for Ukrainian children to attain Russian citizenship, making it easier for Russian families to adopt them. Polina believes that Nikita was about to be adopted. So he has his Ukrainian birth certificate, born in Ukraine. But what is this one? The one Russia made say?
It states that he's a citizen of the Russian Federation.
The school insisted that Polina's documentation was fake and demanded a DNA test. They kept her waiting for 70 days. All the while, she did not back down. Until one day, she was reunited with Nikita. His words, "This is my mother, my grandmother."
As immigration tightens, we have learned that during the Russia-Ukraine war, human trafficking has been taking place, and Cuba has brought it to the surface. Let us turn to Lily Bennett to give more information.
I'm here to report news regarding Cuba's role in the Russia-Ukraine war. Cuba had reported that there is a human trafficking ring that coerces Cuban citizens to fight in the Russia-Ukraine war. Russia has made no response to these allegations as of September 5th, 2023. As of late May, a Russian newspaper had reported several Cuban citizens had signed contracts with Russia's armed forces in return for Russian citizenship. And last year, Russia had announced a plan to boost the size of its armed forces by 30% to 1.5 million combat personnel. Although Cuba is closely tied with Russia, Cuba stresses that they will not partake
in the Russia-Ukraine conflict.
Let's hear from Sukhmani Kaur and Anna Ritter, political reporters discussing the upcoming 2024 elections.
Thanks, Maddie. The first order of business regarding the Russian elections in 2024 is that the Russian president, Vladimir Putin, must decide whether he wants to run for re-election in the upcoming year.
Putin had amended the Russian constitution in 2020, saying that he is allowed to remain president until the year 2036. As of right now, only President Putin is aware of how the 2024 elections will look.
This is not by mistake, as Putin prefers to keep his elites in the dark, but both the administration and elites have been operating on the assumptions that Vladimir Putin will hold on to power indefinitely.
Thanks for listening to our Russia newscast.